Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Balancing Act, the show where we help you balance life and all the craziness that happens. And today we're hopefully going to try to help you live a little bit longer and maybe a little bit healthier as well. We have Dr. Pablo Prichard joining us. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. Hopefully a lot of it.
Yeah, I said, hopefully we're trying to live a little bit longer, and his head was just nodding in approval. You have done some amazing work in a lot of different areas. You're a plastic surgeon. You're in kind of like longevity now. You do a lot of different things. What are you doing right now to help patients?
So right now, what I'm really focusing on, because I used to be focused on reconstructive medicine, right? And that's basically kind of fixing functional issues, right? A trauma issue or a cancer issue, that sort of thing. And I felt like you can kind of like help people a little bit, with that. But how did they get to that point? What was the root cause of that? How do they get that chronic illness or that cancer or whatever it is? That's what I'm trying to do now, trying to prevent all of the little things that cause these big problems in life.
When I first met you, it was when you were doing breast reconstruction and you were working, was it John C. Lincoln at
Yes.
a hospital here in the Valley? What were you doing in the emergency room, in fact?
So when I first started reconstructive medicine, I was in the trauma bay nonstop, just like every night. I think my first couple of years I took 365 nights of call in a row every year for like any kind of trauma that happened, whether it be like, a motor vehicle collision, gunshot wound to the head,
Wow.
near limb loss, for limb salvage, those type of things, trying to repair those big functional issues, as well as the cancer issues that we were talking about, kind of like somebody has a tumor in their face, maybe their jaw is missing because they had to resect that bone tumor that was going on there, and then having to reconstruct the face, those type of things. So putting people back together that had like these big obvious problems. Now it's like trying to stop all the tiny problems that create big problems.
I think it's interesting. Now you're going back, right, to try to say, hey, let's be a little bit healthier inside of our bodies to try to prevent some of the other things that you were treating before. And I think that there's a big movement in that. What do you think is one of the, and I know there's probably a few, some of the biggest issues or challenges that you see with us trying to be healthier and live a little bit longer these days?
Well, I think a lot is possible. And that's one of those things that we'll talk about this further later, but it's like people think that, okay, if I just do this one little thing, right, then I'm going to live a little bit longer. But my message is, if you do this spectrum of things in an efficient manner, right? Because nobody has time to basically be what I call a longevity athlete, where your goal in life is just to live longer, right?
Yeah.
You have kids, you've got a job,
There's a reason, there's a why.
Right. But if you do a bunch of these little things that are all kind of have like a symbiosis, right? They're all integrated together, then you can really maximize not only your time spent living, but not only your health during those times, but also your vitality, the whole idea of not getting frail as you age.
So where do we begin? Do we begin with what we're consuming? Is it vitamins? Is it exercise? And I know it's probably a comprehensive list of a lot of things. And then I was sharing with him as we were walking into the studio that I was watching some of your videos on YouTube. There's a gut biome thing, and you think of probiotics. And so you have all these different things as a consumer and as a mom and a dad and a wife kind of coming at you, and you're like, where do I even begin?
Right. I think the most important part of knowing where to begin is knowing what the problem is. Because what I always find with patients or anybody that I talk to about this, if I can tell them to do something, but if they don't understand why, then it's very unlikely that they keep doing that after I'm not looking, right? But if they really understand what the problem is, why they're aging, for instance, then the solution actually makes more sense, number one, and they're much more likely to continue that because they know the behind the scenes, the background of like why what they're doing is actually improving their life.
So let's talk a little bit about sleep.
Okay.
Is that a part of the equation as well?
Absolutely. Sleep is definitely a part of the solution. We haven't talked about the problem yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, sleep is definitely a part of the solution. It's
Yeah.
a critical part for sure.
So then let's go back to the problem.
Yeah.
Give us an idea of what we could, experience or how we could see the problem.
Well, I happen to have some really nice slides for you here.
Okay.
So okay, I've organized the problem in a way that makes sense to me. And long ago, when I used to talk about this in lectures, I used to call this the wheel of death. Because,
Thank you for changing the name.
yeah, no, because nothing gets people's attention like, oh, that's something I probably should pay attention to, right? I don't want that.
Right.
And then I've more recently kind of softened it to the wheel of age. But
Well done.
Thank you very much. So the idea is there are 10 different aspects on this wheel that accumulate damage over time, and that's
Okay.
the important part, because this is the biggest distinction I can make to your viewers. Just because another year went by, you took another trip around the sun, doesn't mean you grew a year older biologically. And that you have to really understand the difference between aging and time, because aging does not equal time.
Can we reverse?
Yes, because the idea is that aging isn't a function of time. It's not how long you live. It's how much damage you accumulate over that period of time. And it's really important to understand what damage is, because there is the tiny, tiny little damage that we don't see and you don't feel and you don't understand that's happening. And then there's the big damage, what I call macro damage, that you see that's kind of the end result of all the tiny little damage that's occurred over a long period of time.
Okay.
Measuring and looking at that tiny damage and preventing that tiny damage, that's the important part, so that the big damage doesn't happen.
I understand.
I'll give you an example. So heart disease, right? Somebody wakes up and has a heart attack one day. Did they just all of a sudden get heart problems? No. They had tiny little bits of damage into their hearts and their arteries and their circulation over decades of time. And then one day they ended up with a heart attack. But that heart attack didn't occur that day. It occurred over like decades of time. Another one, the C word that everybody talks about, right? Cancer. You wake up one day and you get this diagnosis of cancer. Did that happen overnight? No. Not only did that tumor that got diagnosed start out as like one cell, probably years before your diagnosis, but the events that occurred to create that cancer cell in the beginning happened decades before that, in the tiny little bits of damage to your metabolics, to your immune system, to your DNA. And that's the kind of damage, the micro damage, that we talk about in the Wheel of Age, where it comes from and how to prevent it. The first step in damage I always like to think about is your mitochondria. Your mitochondria, everybody thinks of that as like the powerhouse of your cell, right? This is where energy is produced. So if you think about very basically, if you have energy production like a power plant, you're producing electricity, right? But the side result is you're getting pollution, right, from the little chimney in the back, right? That pollution in your cell and your mitochondria is known as oxidative stress, or it's an oxidant. You basically, how you like take an antioxidant to be healthy, right? Antioxidant means it's the opposite of the oxidant. Oxidant is the actual aging damager stressor. Antioxidant is the neutralizer, right? So back to our electric power plant analogy, if you have a power plant that's producing a pollution as well as energy, and that pollution is not immediately neutralized, that pollution goes back and damages the power plant, which causes the power plant to produce less efficient energy, so less energy and more pollution, and that pollution damages the power plant, less efficient energy, more pollution, and it's this vicious cycle, right?
So when you take that antioxidant, let's say, for example, like one of the vitamins or the supplements that are over the counter, does that negate the damage that has already been done? Does it help that heal?
In a way, yes. But there's also natural mitochondrial antioxidants that your mitochondria in your cell produces, and trying to increase your natural body's defense against damage is kind of the theory here, because your body is smart, right? Your body's wonderfully made. It is actually at every one of these points, I can go into detail, but obviously we have limited time, but every one of these points has a damage and also has a self-repair mechanism.
Oh.
But you're weighing how much damage you're accumulating versus how well your body can repair. And when damage outweighs repair, that's when aging happens. Think about like when in your 20s, right?
Those are good years.
Great years, right? It feels like you're not aging at all, right?
Yes.
You feel like, I'm 18 and then I'm now 28. It's 10 years passed by.
Yeah.
And almost no aging happened. Why is that?
Yeah, and I'm shedding weight like nothing. Like
Yeah.
I can have like a double cheeseburger, and it's
Right.
like I ate nothing.
And then maybe from 28 to 38, you notice, maybe there's like little, I'm fine though. There's little bits of things that changes that I see happening, but it's mostly
Yeah,
good.
have babies,
Yeah.
then you're losing the weight and gaining it back when you have another baby.
Exactly. And then from 38 to 48, all of a sudden now you have more things that start appearing. And you're
Yeah.
like, that's not good.
Yeah, you're
And
like,
then
that's
58,
weird. What happened
and then
there?
68. And you see this acceleration process happening. It's a snowball effect of all that tiny little damage that we were talking about earlier. These little, so everything you do, like every breath you take, every meal you eat, every stressful thought you have, all of those things leave tiny little marks on your cells. And that's what I'm referring to as microdamage.
Okay.
That adds up over years and decades and snowballs. Think about just a little tiny bit of snowflakes on the side of a mountain starting to gather. And nobody notices it, right? It's fine. And it starts to gather into like a snowball. Still nobody can see it because it's a big mountain. And then it starts to roll down the mountain and starts to gain momentum, and it's gaining more and more snow, bigger snowball, right? And it
Yeah.
eventually causes an avalanche. Right? That avalanche is what we see, but preventing that snowball from happening, that's what we need to do.
And so that's really the problem. And that's something that you see in a lot of your patients.
Totally.
Yeah. So can you name off some of the other?
Yes. So the next step is genomic damage. That oxidative stress where the oxidant doesn't just stop in the mitochondria. It goes to the DNA where your
Okay.
nucleus is, right in the center of the cell. You have your DNA that encodes everything that your body does. Right?
Okay.
If that stress damages the DNA, you get breaks in your
Yes.
DNA, right? You get mutations. Those mutations can lead to bad things down the road. Also, your epigenome, which is, you think about the gene, every little gene in your DNA has a little switch in front of it called the promoter area. And that's what we call the epigenome. So that switch it's like a dimmer switch. It can be like turned up or it can be turned down. There's definitely genes that are more youthful genes, like anti-inflammatory genes or repair genes. If there's damage to your epigenome, then the bad switches are turned up, the good switches are turned down. Protein. So if you have bad energy, right, bad mitochondria, bad DNA, so bad genes coded, bad switches, and then you're going to get faulty proteins. Those faulty proteins then lead to stem cell exhaustion because those stem cells are trying to fix everything in your body.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're overextending what it can fix, they get exhausted. Stem cell exhaustion leads to hormone dysfunction. Your hormones are also being one of those things that are fixed by the stem cells. And as your endocrine glands, the glands that actually make the hormones, right, they get damaged and diminished, your hormones diminish. That can in turn affect your microbiome, which is the gut bacteria. Most people don't even think about the gut bacteria. They just take a probiotic every once in a while and think they're good because they're bloated. But there's so many different important things that the microbiome does that's important to aging that we don't even think about.
And we'll get to, I wanted to ask you after you're done with this, to your detox, because I
Yes.
saw your YouTube channel and good information on the detox process.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
And then your microbiome being affected then leads to inflammaging, or your immune system being hyperactive, because all these things that are, your microbiome is repairing your gut. And if it is unable to repair your gut, all these toxins, more toxins are leaking in through the gut, that leaky gut syndrome, right? Into the bloodstream, causes the immune system to get hyperactive. And then that leads to cellular senescence, because your immune system, if it's dysfunctioning, in other words, too hyperactive and getting overextended, now it can't find all those cells that are no longer functional that need to be taken out and recycled. And they start to accumulate, these zombie cells. So you get accumulation of non-functional cells. The more your organs are non-functional, the more you have organ dysfunction. And then that leads to that macro damage that we talked about, the big things like the diabetes,
the snowball,
the heart disease, the cancer, the arthritis, that all those things that we think of as aging, they all started as that tiny little snowflake with that mitochondria leading to all these other issues.
And they all kind of interconnect, which I think you have more slides to show.
Yes.
And it kind of shows how everything really is connected.
All of these outside factors, from the toxins, the radiation, the alcohol, UV, stress, inflammation, poor sleep we were talking about, your diet, your lifestyle, all these things interact at all these different sites.
Oh, wow.
Seems kind of crazy, but it's all mapped out to where they interact. And then once a certain threshold happens, then all the sites themselves start to actually affect each other. And then that's when you get like the avalanche happening. So like the hyper accelerated aging, where I call it age acceleration. And that's what we want to prevent, so that we prevent that kind of falling over the cliff.
So let's say this is a situation like, you're not sleeping well, you don't feel well, you're not eating well, you're tired all the time. Where does somebody begin in that healing process?
So solution is something that I call decaf life. And so think about, so you have, I love analogies because people can understand. The decathlon, we have the decathlete, kind of the world's greatest athlete, right? Who has 10 different events that they have to be good at. But the person who wins the decathlon isn't the person who can throw the javelin the furthest or run the fastest or pole vault the highest, right? It's the person who's the most competent at all 10 events, because that one event that you're missing in decathlon is the one event that's going to kill your score.
So it's not about being perfect in every one of them. It's
You don't
about
have to be the best in any one event.
it's about doing all of these things.
It's about being competent in all of those events.
Now, is there a reason why exercise is number one?
Exercise is a massive event. So in exercise, we think of not just, running or aerobic exercise. That's very important. Your VO2 max is hugely important, which is like your ability to actually use oxygen and energy. But also strength training, because muscle mass is incredibly important as you age. So is your flexibility, mobility. So all those things are considered part of exercise. Because think about it, if you can't even be flexible enough to exercise, it's a prerequisite to exercise, because then you can't actually do anything else in exercise.
Yeah.
Right?
Number two is mind, brain, and stress.
Right. So there's a huge mind-body connection, right? So any stress that you're feeling has a massive impact on all of those little spots on the wheel of age that we talked about earlier. And it degrades, it leaves errors and damage on every one of those spots. It's hard to visualize, but it's very, very true, this mind-body connection. So, getting rid of stress, having purpose in life, having healthy relationships, the strength of your relationships. There was a study I think we talked about last time, the Harvard study of human development, where the single one thing that was the most important factor across all demographics was how strong the relationships were.
Yeah.
That's what was the biggest factor in longevity.
I love that, because it meant that you had like a +1 to help you and maybe cheer you on, or it's a really rough day and I got to work out, or hey, what are we going to have for dinner? And, let's tackle nutrition if we can. I was watching your YouTube channel and you talked a little bit about the Mediterranean diet. We've heard that for a long, long time. Is that still kind of the go-to?
Yes, it's an anti-inflammatory diet. And when we think about inflammation, is one of those things that really ages us. So it's like you think about food not as just how much protein you're getting, or because that's important, and like on the carbohydrates, your macros, all those kind of things. But think of food as code that tells your body to do certain things, right? And when you're eating things that are inflammatory, it tells your body to go into this inflammatory status that is actually hyper-aging. And the Mediterranean diet has actually been shown to actually decrease inflammation and thus decrease aging.
That's amazing. And then number 7 on your list is hormones.
Yeah.
I wanted to chat about this because as we were walking in, we talked about the big movement in perimenopause. I saw something, came up on my feed on the gram, on the algorithm, and it said there was a documentary about it. And why now? Women have been going through this type of this type of time in their life for many decades, years, centuries. Why now? Why are we seeing this big push to educate women in this way?
Well, I think so. Hormones were a big fad, a couple decades ago. And then it was, okay, well, maybe they're harmful. And so doctors backed way off of doing hormones for women for aging and for menopause and all those issues. And then it was discovered that, oh, wait, no, there's actually a balance here. There's nuances that have to be taken into account because, back in the day, if you had maybe hot flashes or whatever, then people would give you, okay, here's some Prempro, right? Just a basic medication. Yeah. And there's a difference between bioidentical hormones, like real hormones, what your body's actually getting, and these pseudo hormones that are they're kind of like derived from horses or something like that. It's not actually the same molecule. It doesn't act the same. And then also the route of administration, like if you take it orally or if you take it on patch, are vastly different. Because when you take estrogen orally, even if it was a bioidentical hormone, it gets first pass metabolism through your liver. So in other words, your liver changes that molecule before it even goes to the rest of your body. But so really understanding those nuances and seeing that, hey, hormones are actually healthy because think of your car, right?
Yeah.
If you had something that was going out in your car, like a piston that was going out, and you're like, you know what, it's okay. I've got, say it's a V8. I've got 7 other pistons. It's fine. That piston is going to wear all of them out because they're all closely integrated. And this is what I mean about one thing isn't going to be the thing that makes you live longer. It's all the things integrated together. So that's why hormones is so important, because it's that piston that's going out and not replacing it in a way that your body knows physiologically is the normal way of getting it, right? Then you're going to have some rapid aging issues.
So let's chat now. One of the other items on your list, number 9, supplements and meds.
When we talk about supplements, we're literally saying supplementing your nutrition, right? So anything that you are deficient in, and a lot of people are deficient in a lot of things that they don't know about, and until they actually get, this is where the health monitoring comes in, until they get a lab panel that says, hey, you're deficient in vitamin D, or you're deficient in a micronutrient, then they don't really even know that they're missing something. So supplementing anything that they're deficient in is super important. That's part of it. And then other things like, obviously creatine is one of those things that hugely important for muscle development, keeping your muscle as you age.
For women as well.
For women as well. No, it's not for bodybuilders. It's literally for your everyday person.
Well, I remember in high school, the guys I went to high school with would take creatine. So when I started reading these articles about women should take creatine, I'm like, what? This is crazy. But apparently it's good for your brain as well.
Fantastic for your brain. It's great for energy production. And as we talked about earlier, energy equals youth, right? It equals the ability, energy to build, energy to repair, because if you don't have those things, you're just degrading.
And then we just have a couple of minutes left, but I know it went by fast. If we can talk about detoxing in 1 minute, if you can give us an idea.
So detox, when we think about detox, we're thinking about removing how many toxins you're accumulating, because that's part of the picture, the add sign, and then we're maximize how many toxins you're eliminating, the negative sign, right? The plus and minuses. So your water, right? Think about your water that needs to be filtered with RO filter and charcoal. Your air, same thing, HEPA filter and charcoal. And then your fruit and vegetables, cleaning the pesticides, with baking soda and water, not just water, because that doesn't remove any surface pesticides. 90% of the pesticides from the surface are removed just with simple baking soda water technique. And then at the same time, maximizing your body's natural detox process from your liver to your gut to your kidneys to your sweating. Sauna therapy. We're talking about glutathione. We're talking about insoluble fiber that can absorb the toxins that are being excreted back into the gut, so they're not recycling back into your bloodstream.
Right.
All those things are super important. So balancing, removing as many toxins, but also minimizing how many toxins you're getting in your body in the first place.
You use the most important word there, balancing. Yes. Balancing everything. Of course, seeing a doctor, getting a full blood panel and checking everything out. How do people find you? If you've been a wealth of knowledge, and I hope you took notes, because I know I did, and I'm going to have to probably go back and watch it again. But how do people find you if they're looking for information or want to seek you out?
So Forever Young is a movement that we're starting, and it's basically one that we're looking to really educate people on all these principles. So find us on Forever Young .tv.
Okay, and a great YouTube channel as well, by the way. So,
Thank you.
yeah, Dr. Pablo Prichard, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Celeste.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and thank you all for watching The Balancing Act. And hopefully, this helped you balance life a little bit better and gave you some great information to enrich your life. And as you mentioned, Dr. Prichard, your why, of course, is one of the most important things. So, thank you so much for your time. Thank you.